My name is Eleanor, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a school teacher in London, spending my days with children who fill the classroom with noise and laughter. But when I return home each evening, the silence is overwhelming. My husband works in another city, sometimes gone for weeks at a time. He sends money when he can, but it's never quite enough to cover our expenses. London is expensive, and my teacher's salary barely scratches the surface of what we need to survive. I live most days alone in our small house. I cook single portions, clean rooms that rarely get dirty, and sit by the lamplight listening to the clock tick away the hours. We've talked about having a child, dreamed about it even, but we both know we can't afford one. That dream sits heavy in my chest, an ache that never quite goes away. The house itself seems to share our struggles. The roof leaks when it rains, leaving buckets scattered across the floor. The stove fails at the worst moments, and unpaid bills pile up in the kitchen drawer where my husband won't see them. I can't bring myself to tell him. He already carries too much worry. One morning before heading to school, I sat with my tea and newspaper. My eyes drifted to the advertisements at the back, the Section 4 rooms to rent and quick opportunities. The idea planted itself in my mind and wouldn't leave. That afternoon after my last class, I wrote a small notice with trembling hands. Room available in quiet home. Short stays only. I told myself it was practical, just a temporary solution to help with the bills. I posted it before I could change my mind. 2 days later, a man appeared at my door. He introduced himself as Mr. Harris and explained he was in London briefly for work. He seemed ordinary enough, well-spoken and calm, with a pleasant smile. He asked very few questions, which I found reassuring at the time. When he saw the upstairs room, he made an offer that stopped my breath. He would pay double the asking price for just 2 nights. Double. I thought immediately of the leaking roof, the unpaid bills hidden in the drawer, the constant weight of not having enough. I didn't think about my husband. I didn't think about what I was really inviting into our home. I simply said yes. Mr. Harris moved in that same evening with nothing but a single small suitcase. He went upstairs, locked his door, and that was that. The house felt different immediately, less empty, but somehow more unsettling. It felt watched. That first night, I heard him leave well after midnight, his footsteps careful and measured on the stairs. He returned in the early hours, moving just as quietly. I lay awake in bed, listening to sounds I couldn't quite identify. The next day, he never came down. The curtains in his room stayed drawn all day long. By evening, when I caught a glimpse of him in the hallway, I noticed dark stains on his shoes. I convinced myself it was only mud from the London streets. I didn't ask. I was afraid of what the answer might be. That night, strange sounds drifted down from upstairs. Metal scraping against metal, furniture being dragged across the floor, movements that made no sense. I stayed frozen in my bed until the sun came up. Before dawn on the third day, Mr. Harris left. There was no goodbye, no request for change from the money he'd paid. He simply vanished. When I finally worked up the courage to enter the room, the smell hit me first. Something sharp and wrong that I couldn't identify. The bedsheets were gone. Deep scratches marked the floorboards near the wall, as if something heavy had been dragged. I opened every window and stood there trying to breathe normally, trying to convince myself everything was fine. But that same afternoon, my husband came home unexpectedly early. I felt a rush of relief at seeing his familiar face, but it didn't last. He noticed the strange smell immediately, his nose wrinkling as he stepped inside. When he asked what happened, I had no choice but to tell him everything about the advertisement, about Mr. Harris, about the money. I watched his expression transform, not into anger at first, but into something worse. Fear. Hours later, the police arrived at our door. They asked about a man who had stayed in our house, describing Mr. Harris perfectly. They told us he was wanted for a serious crime committed in a nearby town. They said there might still be evidence here. I stood frozen as they searched the upstairs room, their faces grim and professional. They wouldn't meet my eyes. When they finally left, the silence between my husband and me felt suffocating. He didn't speak to me that evening. He slept on the sofa, turned away from the bedroom we'd shared for years. In the morning, I found him packing his bag, moving with quiet, deliberate motions. His words, when they finally came, were worse than shouting would have been. "You let a stranger into our home without telling me. This house was the only place I trusted." He left without looking back. Now the house is silent again, but it's a different kind of silence than before. The money I earned from Mr. Harris is gone, taken as evidence or spent on things I can't even remember. The roof still leaks. The bills still come. Sometimes, late at night, I hear footsteps upstairs even though I know I'm alone. I tell myself it's the house settling, the old wood contracting in the cold, but I don't really believe it. I'm still here, still alive, still teaching children their lessons during the day. But I'm alone now in a house that no longer feels like home, in a life I damaged with my own desperate hands. All of it started with one small advertisement and one lonely decision made in fear. I wanted to fix everything, to make our struggles disappear. Instead, I lost the one thing that mattered most. The silence echoes differently now, and I understand that some choices, once made, can never be undone.